Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. We're going back to some live visuals coming in from Ahmedabad, where, as we pointed out earlier, you've got UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is on a two-day visit to India. As we were pointing out earlier, he was also gifted an unpublished book, which was in fact written by Mahatma Gandhi, Bapu. But unfortunately, that book was unpublished. That was given as a gift to Boris Johnson. But as we've been pointing out, the focus for India, of course, will be trade as well as defense. Today also, it is a packed itinerary. Those visuals on your screens, we can see the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who's been given a tour of the ashram now on those visuals as well. A red carpet has been laid out for the UK Prime Minister. Of course, the bilateral that will be taking place between both the leaders will be taking place in the national capital, and that will only take place tomorrow. But if I just give you an overview of what we can expect today, as I pointed out, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson arrived in India, and this is for a two-day visit. The British Prime Minister will discuss various issues. Trade and defense, of course, will be on top of the agenda. He's kick-starting his visit coming in from Ahmedabad. Those visuals coming in from the Sabarmati Ashram. He's been given a tour of the ashram as well. He's also been gifted an unpublished book, which was in fact written by Mahatma Gandhi. That is a gift that's been given by the team there at the Sabarmati Ashram. My colleague and a foreign affairs editor, Maha Siddiqui, is now back with us. Maha, so we can see those visuals of the UK Prime Minister now coming out. He's in fact been given a tour of the entire property, various aspects being explained to him as well. We just pointed out earlier that an unpublished book written by Mahatma Gandhi also being given to him. Just talk to us about the significance of the visit kick-starting in Ahmedabad, specifically from the Sabarmati Ashram.
Well, it is interesting that the visit itself is starting from Ahmedabad, considering that the visit was expected for a very long time and has been cancelled twice, but he was supposed to come to Delhi directly. This was last year during the Republic Day celebrations when he was expected to be the chief guest, and because at that time the numbers of COVID cases were rising in UK, Boris Johnson had to cancel his visit. Then later that year, again around the same time, April, May, is when he was expected to come to India. And at that time, India was hit by a second COVID wave. So again, it did not materialize. Now he comes at a time when both India and UK are looking at a deliverable this year, a big deliverable this year, in the form of a free trade agreement. So largely, the talks are going to be hinged around trade, commerce. Indo-Pacific tilt as well will also be very important, especially for India in today's context when it needs to counter China. And countering China in all aspects, not just in the aspect of security, but also on how to become a more significant linchpin in the global supply chain. Coming to the issue of Ukraine as well, again, Ridhima, that issue of supply chain will become very important because we are seeing that disrupted currently as well. So those are going to be very important, crucial discussions that will take place. In Ahmedabad, his visit, of course, largely entails business. Some of the events that we are seeing at the moment, of course, are more customary in nature or of any leader who goes to Ahmedabad visiting the Sabarmati Ashram. Even here in Delhi, most of the leaders, they go to the Rajghat. So going to any place of significance related to Mahatma Gandhi is in some sense seen as a tradition when foreign dignitaries visit India. Of course, he's the father of the nation who fought for India's independence in a non-violent fashion. I think that becomes even more significant today as the world is going through what we are seeing, a war in Europe. So significant there on many levels, but largely, Ridhima, it will be about trade and commerce. That's what we have been given to believe. There will be no lecturing done by the UK on the issue of India's stand on Russia vis-a-vis Ukraine. And of course, also the aspect that I explained about supply chains, about China.
Ma, I also want to understand and tell me if my assessment is correct, because the entire focus has been on the Russia-Ukraine war and how India's position has been seen. Discussions around a free and fair Indo-Pacific pretty much have been ignored for the last couple of months. Fair to say that that actually will be the key point when the bilateral happens between both the leaders?
So, while that is true, that because of the Ukraine war, it has become the focal point rather than countering of China in the Indo-Pacific. But we have seen that despite a raging war, there was a 2+2 meeting between India and the United States where the issue of Indo-Pacific came up. There was in the run-up to the Ukraine war before Russia's invasion, but very much at a time when the U.S. assessment was that it can happen any day. We saw a ministerial meeting Quad countries in Melbourne. So there has been some amount of focus despite the overarching issue of Ukraine war on Indo-Pacific. Interestingly, today itself, even while we speak, a batch of vaccines has been given to Thailand by the Quad countries, and this was a commitment under the Indo-Pacific commitment by the Quad to provide Indo-Pacific countries these vaccines. Again, in a bid to counter China, because China was aggressively selling its own across the world. That aspect will, of course, remain important, especially because the UK's strategy on Indo-Pacific was unveiled last year, and it specifically spoke about how they are going to look at more trade, investment, and enhancing business ties with Indo-Pacific, which become important, especially in the context of China.
Ma, I also want to talk to you specifically as far as talks around defense are concerned. Now, even with the United States, their concern with India has been that you should have some sort of a reduced dependency on Russia because our maximum equipment does come from Russia. Is that going to be a big talking point between India and United Kingdom as well?
So we are expecting, Ridhima, probably some big announcement in the defense sector. We have been given an indication that there could be some talks around technology transfer, something that is very vital as far as India is concerned. India has been asking transfer or make in India as far as defense equipment is concerned. So the stress, for instance, that has been laid by the US in asking India not to collaborate further with Russia on defense equipment. India has given the argument that so far India's equipment is largely procured from Russia. So if suddenly overnight India changes to getting other countries involved in its defense procurement, then there will be a problem of interoperability. But the bigger problem is also spares. The other aspect is also when India itself wants to be self-reliant as far as the defense equipment is concerned, and also have, as the Prime Minister himself pointed out, that there has to be a surprise element in if you want to protect your country in a war. And that surprise element can only happen if your own equipment is indigenous to some extent, so that the other side is not aware of what your equipment really is like and what are your capabilities. For that, Make in India is very vital. So on that count, discussions could take place. India has diversified its defense basket, dealing a lot more with Israel, with France. But we'll have to wait to see what can UK offer that could be better than what is being offered currently to India. And in that context, as I'm pointing out, Make in India becomes very important, and the possibility of technology transfer.
Ma, I'll just request you to stay on with us.